Hi guys, welcome back to the Forgetful Scholar, and this week we're going to chat about two books. So one is kind of a revisit, historical romance, and the other is a paranormal, cozy mystery. So the first one, let me explain how it's sort of a revisit, a reread, but not at the same time. So it is Love Only Once by Johanna Lindsey, a Malory Anderson book novel, family novel. And don't you love how the author's name is bigger than the title? Anyway, I read this once, years and years and years and years and years ago, years ago, and I never went back to it. This is the first in the Malory Anderson family novel series by Johanna Lindsey. And you guys know I love that series, right? So I was like, you know what? I've only read the first one of this once. Let me try it again. So the back of it, the exquisite niece of Lord Edward and Lady Charlotte Malory, Regina Ashton, is abducted by Nicholas Eden, an arrogant seducer hardened by a painful secret from his past. Reggie has vowed to marry the golden-haired rogue who has besmirched her good name and who arouses her womanly desire to an unendurable level. Sounds like she needs a doctor. Anyway, but her beauty only stirs Nicholas's passion, giving rise to a dangerous misunderstanding and a love that can live only once in a lifetime. It's a historical romance. I did give it 4 stars. Now, the thing is, it's about, what is it? 344 pages, and it was published in 1985. Now, I tell you why it's why I tell you the dates it's published is because romance at that time, you kind of have to be a little careful because there was no trigger page warnings, and there really, cute dogs crashing at the carpet. There was really no dark romance at the time, right? So some of the books, like bodice rippers, I think they were called, go to the line, sometimes over the line. Now this one, no SA happens. There is some questionable consent, so it goes to the line. But in those moments, the author has us in Regina's point of view, and she's having a damn good time, does not want it to stop. So that's why it seemed, it's not triggering, At least for me, it wasn't. Now, let's get down to it. Okay, so Regina. To explain this, and I think this book is a great opener for the Malory Anderson family book series because you get the brothers' dynamics, you get their dynamics for Regina and, the nephews and nieces they have, you get it, right? So this is a historical, straight romance. And to explain it, so the Malory siblings, the oldest is Jason, and he is a Marquis. And then it's Edward. So it's Jason, Edward, then Melissa, the only girl, and Regina's mother. James, who is the blackest of black sheep, to the point where, this came out in the 1980s, so I'm going to spoil it. Who is a pirate. And then Anthony, who's the youngest, who is my favorite of the brothers and one of my favorites of the whole series, right? So this family, half of them have blonde hair, green eyes, and the other half have black hair, cobalt eyes. Take after their great grandparents who have their own romance story. It's like a holiday romance. It's actually pretty cute. I might have to revisit that one. Anyway, Melissa, the only girl, black haired, cobalt eyes, died. Her and her husband died, and Regina was raised between the 4 remaining brothers because they all adore her. And she is a little spoiled, but she's not vicious about it. I actually really, really like Regina. She's one of the few females of any series that I really like. Her, Amy, I shouldn't say that. I like a lot of females. I don't know why I say that, but I really do like Regina. She is spoiled. She can be she's very good at manipulating the gossip to the benefit of her family, which I respect. If she was in a house, she would be a Slytherin, I respect it. So she's been on the marriage market for 3 years, and nothing's come of it because her uncles all except James, who is on the high seas and, you know, being a pirate and sort of unofficially disowned by his brothers, don't agree on, like, don't like any of her beaux, don't like them, don't agree. And she adores her uncles, and there's no point where she would, like, want to marry someone they don't like, at least in the beginning, right? But she's getting tired of it. She's getting tired of not enjoying herself in the balls because she's like assessing every eligible man she sees. You know, she's just not having fun, right? So because of that, she goes to, or wants to go to her Uncle Tony's house, who lives in London, because she's staying with her Uncle Edward, about to go to a big deal ball. And she wants him to convince Jason, the oldest brother, just to pick someone. Like, she's just like, you know, you guys will pick someone for me and it'll be great. I just don't give a shit anymore. You know what I mean? And, oh, well, 6 minutes before I cursed. Okay, good for me. New record. Anyway, so she wants to borrow the carriage to go to this ball, right? And her cousin, who's in charge of all of his siblings and his cousin, Marshall, I think it's Marshall, is like, no, you know, you already made us late. Absolutely not, you know. Now, we're going to pause there. And we're going to go into Nicholas, who is the guy in this romance, who I don't particularly like. For me, it didn't get better in the story, but maybe someone, I mean, I'm not really into like super arrogant heroes in books, but some people really enjoy that. So there we go. And it opens up and he and his mistress are like chilling, like they're not doing anything. They're just hanging out, and she's trying to get his attention because she wants to marry him. And he's like, nah, I'm tired of her. I'm done. And he is a sworn bachelor because of deep, dark secret, which we all know, like in the first 5 minutes, like first 5 pages, that, oh, he's probably illegitimate. And yeah, he is illegitimate. See, the woman he thought was his mother till he was 10 was verbally and emotionally abusive. And then when he found out he's a bastard, he was actually kind of relieved. But, you know, his stepmother is just horrible, so bitter, so angry. And she's still trying to destroy Nicholas's life, even though Nicholas' dad, the father, is long gone, you know, and Nicholas isn't innocent in this, but, you know, so he's convinced he can never marry, because he doesn't want the stigma. And I get it, back then the stigma was intense, right? But I think coming at this, having read all of the Malory and Anderson series right here, it's not like, it's good to read it first, because if you read it after all that, you realize, like, they don't give a shit about legitimacy like that. Like, Jason, the Marquis, and the oldest brother, his son Derek, who we adore, is illegitimate, and the whole family adores him. No one cares. You know what I mean? Jeremy, Jason, James's son is illegitimate. No one cares. Everyone adores him. In fact, the other brothers finding out that they have a nephew from James is basically the reason they let James back into the family, because they want Jeremy in the family, okay? And even Tony makes a joke about how Regina is just barely this side of legitimate. So, like, this family does not care. So reading all those books and realizing how unique and how, for them, family is the most important thing, and they don't give a shit about legitimacy or anything like that. Family is the most important thing to them. Then going to this book is a mistake, because the whole time I was like, this family doesn't give a shit. What's wrong with you? This family doesn't give a shit. So reading it first, I think, is the best, right? Because if you're reading it first, like any other romance novel of that time period, you're like, oh man, that's a big deal. And it was a big deal, you know? And Nicholas is best friends with Derek, Regina's older cousin. So, like, he kind of knows the family. He really respects Jason. Like, he knows the family. So reading it, you're kind of like, and I guess it's because, like, he was so, like, emotionally tortured by it, by his stepmother, that maybe, you know, I don't know. But anyway, she's like, the mistress is going to make him jealous, right? And he's like, yeah, sure, whatever. He sees, so we go back to Regina and her cousins. Now, Nicholas's mistress is going to the ball with Regina's cousin. So she's like, just take my carriage because I want to go. You know what I mean? So she's like, thank you. She takes the carriage. So Nicholas sees his mistress's carriage in front of the notorious womanizer in rank, Anthony Malory's home. And he's like, oh, she's trying to make me jealous with him. Please. Although he's like, he is a handsome fellow. He's not really jealous. He just wants to teach her a lesson, I guess. So he kidnaps who he thinks is his mistress and locks her up in a room without even looking at her. And he goes to the ball. And surprise, surprise, when he sees his mistress at the ball, and he's like, oh God, who did I grab? Turns out it's Regina. And she thinks the whole thing is hilarious. Like, at first she's really scared, but then when she realizes he thinks she's someone else, she's like, oh, this is hilarious. And I didn't want to go to the ball anyway. She only gets upset when she's like, oh, her uncle's probably really worried about her, you know? Because her and Anthony are particularly close. Because Melissa was sort of like a big sister / mom to Anthony. So Regina is sort of like a niece / sister to him, you know? So they're very close. So she thinks it's hilarious. He comes and he's completely enchanted by her. And I will admit, because, you know, she's not the fainting damsel. She's not screaming, crying. She's like, you effed up, buddy. And then she jokes about how they might have to be forced into marriage because of this. You know, she's joking. She doesn't think anybody's gonna know, right? He gets her back home. He wants to explain it to her uncle, and she's like, no, he will kill you. Because Anthony, as we've discovered last week and rediscovered last week and we love it, is a crack shot at the duel, and he's literally will kill him. Like, Anthony's like, duels, your pistols at dawn, and I'm gonna blow your head off. Like, but you know, she's safe and sound. But the thing is, the mistress, who's a freaking idiot, is so excited that she thinks Nicholas was jealous that she tells her friends, who tell their friends, who tell their friends, and by the morning, everybody knows Nicholas kidnapped Regina Ashton, the niece of the Malory brothers, you know, and her reputation is ruined. So the Anthony and Edward kind of browbeat him into agreeing to marry. And it isn't that he doesn't want Regina. He just thinks that, you know, he could easily fall in love with her. And then the moment she finds out he's a bastard, she's going to hate him and he can't take that pain. Like, I'm like, okay, drama queen. All right, whatever. Like, fine. Ugh. Completely forget everything you know about this family and just concentrate on your own man pain. Got it. So it's ridiculous. He tries to get her to break it off and she won't. And they have a night of passion and then she can't because she's preggers. So, but she doesn't tell him because I appreciate that. She had pride. She's not going to like force her husband to stay, right? So they get married and he basically, abandons her because he's like, you wanted a wife, now deal with it, you know, whatever. Because he's angry because, you know, he's an arrogant man that's used to getting his way and he's not getting his way because, you know, the Malory family always get their way, you know, and there's more of them than you know? So, you know, romance stuff happens. And in the meantime, while this is happening, apparently him and Captain Hawk, who happens to be her Uncle James, are like mortal enemies. So I'm like, okay, I'll throw that in. And when James finds out that Nicholas married his beloved niece, he tracks him down to the Caribbean where he is to bring him back. Now, the thing is, in his head, Nicholas was already planning to come back. He's like, by now, his stepmother would have told her the truth and she either hates me or she doesn't. And I want to fix this, you know, stuff like that. But then I don't know what happens. Malory, James comes, kidnaps him, takes him back. And because of like, I guess, the male wounded pride, he makes things worse with his wife. You know what I mean? Like, it's, talk about getting in your own way. It's completely ridiculous. And the thing is, the ending, and I kind of hated that the ending, I freaking loved it. You know, I was so happy at the ending, but I still don't think I don't think he made up for what, you know, abandoning her. Granted, he didn't know she was pregnant, but all that stuff, you know what I mean? But again, why this is 4 stars. I could not put it down. Even though it was a revisit, I read it before, I could not put it down. Midnight, I was like, oh, just a couple more chapters, just one more chapter. 1 o'clock, I was like, oh, I'm almost done. Come on, just a little bit more. 3 o'clock, I was like, you know what? there's 50 pages left. Let's just do this. And I was like, whoa, it's been a long time since I've been so enthralled with the book that I was just like, you know what? I don't care if I don't sleep tonight. I gotta finish this. So even though there's points in this book that like frustrated the crap out of me, I could not put it down. It was so compelling, I could not put it down. So take that. Take that. Take that. Take it. Take it. So that is with that one. Now, the Cozy Mystery. This is a second in a series because that's what happens when you thrift books, and I enjoy thrifting books. A Charmed Death, a Bewitching Mystery Book 2 by Madelyn Alt. Now this one. Now Maggie is Indiana's newest witch. Learning to cope with her newfound powers is tough enough, but add that to keeping stock of enchantments, organized and remembering to tape returns of her favorite show, Magnum P.I., and Maggie's got a full plate. Enchantments is the shop she works at. And Magnum P.I. is like, girl, really? This came out in the 2006 Magnum P.I.? Because not the new one. It would be like Tom Selleck Magnum P.I. I mean, who am I to judge? I still watch Murder, She Wrote and Columbo and stuff like that. But like, I was kind of surprised by that. Anyway, she calls him the perfect man. I was like, okay, I'm judging you. I am judging you, but all right. But when she witnesses an altercation between a local teenage princess and another customer in enchantments, and the latter girl turns up dead, she feels compelled to investigate. Though the police are at a loss, Maggie has some tricks up her sleeve, or to be more specific, some spells, charms, and mystical intuitions. And with the help of her boss and favorite witch, Felicity Dow, Maggie is spellbound and determined to get to the bottom of this murder. So, first of all, Felicity, her friend and boss, barely in it. Barely in it. She spends most of the time with Marcus. Now, was it cute? Sure. Did I have fun? Sure. This was a 2-star though. Am I going to read the rest of the series? Nah. Might give this book away? Yeah. Okay, so let's deal with the mystery of it first, and then I could get into my full-blown crazy person rant. Okay. The mystery, when you find out who it is, there was no clues. There was really no clues leading up to that. You know what I mean? There was no, like, first encounter when she first ran into Amanda, the girl that died. Did you think of these things? I was kind of disappointed. And the murder is super icky, which I get that happens, but I did not like... Okay, so to explain what really made me feel gross about all this is that Amanda is the high school bully. You know, she's like Regina George, right? But she's a teenager, and I'm assuming she's like junior or senior. They don't really, or I don't remember them saying her age, right? She ends up dead, and that's horrible. But as the investigation goes on, Maggie and the hottie Marcus, who's too perfect to be real, discover that she's been in sexual relationships with older men, blackmailing them for money. Why? I don't know. You know, she, very wealthy family, you know what I mean? Father that dotes on her. So there's this weird, like, villainization of Amanda. They're like, oh, well, she was so smart and cunning and she wanted money and power. And it's like, why? She's a teenager. Her brain's not fully formed. You are adult men. That is disgusting. You know, like, there's just this weird, oh, she was a horrible person. That's why she did it. I was like, no, there has to be, like, underlining trauma why she did this. How did she even think to do this? Like, where did even the thought come from, you know? And, like, I was just like, I feel really icky about, like, Maggie didn't come out, like, there was no point where Maggie thought Amanda deserved it. No, she always felt sorry for Amanda, wanting to find the truth. But, like, the story overall painted this teenager as this horrible, manipulative monster doing this, you know, sleeping with older men and blackmailing them. And yes, like, 2 of the older men involved one goes to prison and the other one is killed in a confrontation with Maggie. That's more than they deserve. You know what I mean? They deserve worse. You know, and one of them is like falls through the ice and like slowly freezes to death, which is like a horrible way to go, but I still think he deserves worse, right? Especially since he was like her doctor. like Maggie's doctor and Amanda's doctor. Like, that's really gross. And her father's friends. Like, these were her father's friends that were doing this. So I'm like, was she groomed? Like, there's just, it was just this weird thing where like, oh, Amanda did it. And Amanda had this underground blog where she was telling all, but she had people had aliases. You know, no one knew it was Amanda, you know, stuff like that. Only later on in the investigation, they found out it was Amanda. Because apparently she was like a top class hacker too. I'm like, what the fuck? And she was like putting this out to the public for like all the high school to read. And like my fully formed, super old, crone, adult, fully formed brain, was like, that sounds like a cry for help. Like, that's not like Pretty Little Liars bullshit. That's like, someone help, you know? So that's kind of why I got, you know, about it. I mean, the bloodthirsty part of me is happy that the killer is gone, but at the same time, it's like, why did this start, right? And there's a throwaway line like, oh, I'm sure her father's regrets introducing Amanda to his country club friends. I was like, why did you put that in? Like, what? We spend the whole murder convincing, like, Amanda trying to convince Maggie's mother, Maggie trying to convince Amanda's mother, that it's not her fault, but we're just like, oh, it's totally Dad's fault because he took her to the country club and it's his fault that adult grown men had sex with her. Like, it was just weirdly written. And like, even the 2000s, no, we knew better. I was alive then. We knew better. Hello. No, absolutely not. So that's kind of, I was like, ugh, not that I'm saying all of the books are like this. There is a bigger reason why I'm not going to read this author again. Even though, like, it was fine. Maggie was fine. I found her a little boring. You know, the story's charming. If you don't mind that, cool. There was no... And honestly, I kept reading it because I wanted the cat to show up. And I was like, why is there no cat? There's a cat on the cover. There's a cute little black cat on the cover. Why is there no cat? Where is the cat? Cat never showed up. I was really pissed off. I was really disappointed about that. Now, if you've been here before, you know there's one trope I really hate, and that's second chance romances. I really hate them. There may be every once in a while a diamond in the rough, and I'm like, ooh, humble pie, I've been proven wrong, this was fun. But there is one trope that I hate worse. No. Nay, I despise. And that is love triangle. There's only been like 2 book series where I think I was fine with the love triangle. The Secret Circle by L.J. Smith and the Clockwork series by Cassandra Clare. And that's it. That's it. And I was like, every other time I feel like I want to rip my hair out. Like, no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. You know? And this is between Ted or Todd or Ted. Oh, God, I don't even remember the nothing name. Tom, not either of that. Tom, who's a deputy. And again, this is the second book, so I don't know in the first book he was a sweetheart. Because in this book, he was a jackass. He finds out, I guess, because like this book did a good job of catching us up. Like I didn't feel like I needed to read the first one to get this one. That's good and it's, you know, a mark towards the writer. Tom doesn't deal well with Maggie being a witch, right? So he ghosts her for months and then acts like a petulant, jealous child when she sees she's having drinks with a male friend. You know what I mean? I was like, oh, honey, you could fuck right off, right? And she just kind of like takes it. And there's a line in there. She's like, oh, I guess he's upset that, you know, he sees me out having drinks instead of pining for him. And I'm like, why would you be pining for him? He's a piece of shit. You deserve Maggie, even though you're boring as fuck. You deserve better than that, girl. Higher standards, please. And he's kind of like not there during the whole book. And then he's there at the end. And there's this throwaway line at the epilogue that's like, oh, Tom decided we're dating now. And I was like, Tom decided you're dating now? Tom, you had no say in it? Girl, I know you're a doormat, but like, what the fuck? You know, have some self-respect, girl. And in the whole book, we're with Marcus figuring out because he's ex-Navy intelligence, He rides motorcycle, he plays in a band, he teaches computers at the high school voluntarily, he's a hacker. I was like, he's also a male witch, and he's really supportive and helpful. I mean, the whole time Maggie thinks Marcus is dating Liz, but the book clearly shows that they're not, you know? But Maggie thinks they are. I'm like, oh God, not only is this a triangle, but it's going to be one of those slow freaking burn ones, right? Because this is the second book, she still thinks they're together. So what, the third book, she might realize that Liz and Marcus aren't together, but she's dating Tom. I was like, absolutely not. I'm not going to deal with this. I'm not going to deal with this. And like, if it's true to form and like around that time period, she's probably going to pick the emotionally unavailable ass instead of the emotionally available good guy, which I'm just like, no, absolutely not. I don't know if that's what happens, but that was the trend at that time. So I really hope it doesn't. And I'm like, it's gonna be one of those slow ass burn love triangles that I'm just gonna want to rip my hair out. So you know what? No, thank you. I want to read books that I have fun reading. I don't like to hate read. So even though this book was fine, the author, you're fine. It's just not my thing. And I loathe love triangles. Especially annoying slow burn ones where one guy is an immature ass. And I'm sorry, Tom in this book was an immature ass. And the fact that Maggie's like, well, I guess we're dating now. Like, no. Like, take control of your life, girl. Okay? Okay, I'm done. I think I'm done. I'm done. Okay. Time for me to get back to the real world. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you later. Bye. Hi guys, welcome back to the Forgetful Scholar. And this week we're going to chat about books. 2 books. So one is a revisit, and then one is a cozy mystery. So let's talk about the revisit first. And that was